Hello chaps and chapesses, and this week we're going to talk about my top 10 permit flies. So this week, Kieran Jenkins has come down from Fulling Mill to bring us some of their top permit selections. So these are my pick of their patterns. We've had a long-standing relationship with Fulling Mill over the last 7 to 8 years in the fact that a lot of the patterns that we use around the world, Fulling Mill are one of the only producers of these patterns. So it's been a long-standing relationship and it works very well. It means our clients who are traveling abroad can get the flies that they need. So, my top 10 permit patterns. It's a bit of a kind of, silly thing to be talking about in some ways because permit to permit.
Yeah.
Permit are the most depressing fish on the planet. I mean, we spend hours and hours fishing for these things, and sometimes they'll just, you can make the perfect cast with the perfect fly, and sometimes they'll just look at it and go, nah, I don't think so. But that's what keeps us going. That's what makes us do this. So if you decide that you do want to go and chase permit, these would be the flies that I would suggest. So we're going to start at number 10 with Del Brown's Merkin. Now this is the original classic permit pattern tied with the cross format of the different wool combinations, different colors, classic chartreuse in the middle and the classic rubber legs. With a weed guard on the front, which is really important. So this was the original crab pattern, if you like, the first one that really tried to imitate crabs to actually catch permit on. Okay. It's accounted for probably more permit in Florida than any other fly in the universe. I mean, the various permit tournaments are named after Del Brown, and he's one of those great names in permit fishing folklore. But yeah, so that would be number 10. That would be the fly that everybody should have in their box. It's a classic and it still works, even though it is an old pattern. So, moving on to number 9. Number 9 in my book is actually, bizarrely enough, a bonefish fly.
Right.
So this is the amber bitters, originally developed by Craig Matthews on Turneffe Atoll in Belize. Yeah. Now this is a phenomenal permit pattern in really skinny water. So if you're going to fish in very skinny water, and you've got permit which are very spooky, this can often prove the difference between success and failure. Okay. It did for me, funnily enough. So I have actually caught some permit. I'm not talking like I've never caught a permit. So this for me accounted for a really nice permit in Belize, which I was fishing on my bonefish rig. Right. And that fly was the one that succeeded. And what's particularly good about this one is the deer hair, which is tied in just behind the throat there, acts as a really good weed guard because Turneffe has got an awful lot of turtle grass over the top of coral, and flies get hung up quite quickly, and that just acts as a natural weed guard. But it's a really good little rubber-legged critter. So that is my number 9. Number 8 is the Julia. The Julia is named after the Australian Prime Minister, and this is developed in Australia. It's a brilliant combination of all of those little facets of trigger points on a fly. So we've got some rubber legs here, we've got shrimpy eyes, we've got marabou that puffs out of the back, we've got a throat which is gives it good weed cover, and then also we've got a good weight on the front, along with the body tied out of a crustaceous brush. So this fly has got an awful lot of movement, and it's one of those kind of slightly generic shrimpy patterns that shows up really well in coral rubble, sand flats. So it's a really good all-round pattern for that one. Okay. I'm a real fan of shrimp style flies. I quite like to fish a shrimpy type fly because I prefer to be moving the fly slightly rather than just fishing almost like a static crab, which was the sort of more traditional way of fishing permit flies. Yeah. So that's a great one. Following on from that, at number 7 is the Grim Reaper. Now this is a very similar pattern in some ways. Again, it's It's tied in that shrimpy, crabby type format, but this one's got far more of a Merkin style crabby body. That works particularly well because of this little orange hotspot that's tied in the back.
Yeah.
So that can often be one of those trigger points that that Permit will see. Again, these are all tied on Gamakatsu hooks, very, very strong hooks, which you really, really need when you're permit fishing. Yeah. Because if there's a way they will get off, they will. So that would be number 7. Coming in at number 6 is the tan creole crab, and this is really just more of a modern take on the Del Brown Merkin. So all tan, particularly for the Yucatan in Mexico. Okay. This is where this one was essentially developed, and it's got a good lead eye, so it goes down quickly. The eyes are tied on the top end of the hook, which makes it flop down so that ride's hook point up, and that stops it fouling up and getting stuck. Got a little bit of clear ghost rubber legs there, and this little bit of hackle at the end, which moves in the water. So as you move it in the sand, it puffs out and looks like a crab as it flees away. So that's a really good staple Mexican Belize style crab. So coming in at number 5 is the Flexo weedless crab. Flexo crab was originally developed by a guy called Richard Whitner, we believe, in the US of A, and this was the first time that someone took this extended flex material to make a crab body out of. So it's sort of compiled by pulling the fibers together and creates this really good, interesting looking carapace, which looks very, very crab-like. Yeah. So by then putting the eyes in, you've got a very good crab imitation. There's a bead inside which gives it its weight and makes it ride hook point up again. Yeah. Claws are made from hackles, which are then cut so they look like small pincers. Normally a bit of varnish is put on there, which gives them their shape. And so that's the original Flexo crab, which has been a very successful pattern right across the world. So that brings me on to number 4. Now number 4 is the Homer Shrimpson. Try saying that 10 times after you've had a couple of beers. Homer Shrimpson, Homer Shrimpson. No, too difficult. So this is another of those all-round shrimpy patterns, but this has got some crystal flash in the head. It's got a lovely pink whipping. You've got the shrimpy eyes in the back, and this has got a little bit of a rabbit strip down the front, which gives it really good pulsing movement. Okay. But again, it's another of those crustacean patterns. Permit love crustaceans. So this is, aside from having the most fabulous name, it's actually a very effective pattern as well. So at number 3 is a fly that I actually devised, which is originally devised as a triggerfish fly, but has since actually proved very useful to be a great permit pattern too. It's called the Gumby crab, and it's named after a friend of mine who sadly is no longer with us, but he was extremely keen on chasing triggers, which is where I came with this originally. So again, this was one of those flies that I thought about all of the different elements of other patterns and tried to incorporate all of those elements which other far cleverer people than me have come up with and try and put them all into one fly. So you've got your weed guard, you've got your eyes, you've got your hotspot as a target point, and this also incorporates the keel system. Now this is a really useful way of flipping the crab over. So essentially we have a piece of nylon that runs over the back of the fly with 3 tungsten beads on it, and what that does is as the fly lands, the keel flips the fly over automatically and presents it pincers up, and the pincers are made from very fine chenille, where we have then tied the claws with a little bit of red dye at the end there, and then obviously rubber, because rubber's cool. Gotta have a bit of rubber. So that's the Gumby crab, and that's number 3.
Flexo crab.
Number 2 is the Alphonse crab. Now this originally was developed by James Christmas as a development of the Flexo crab. So what he did was he ended up by putting chenille legs into the body and making it a far more convincing style crab fly. He added the weed guards in the front, which really gave it that weedless ability, which is really important. And also it comes in a creamy color. Now this is really important on the sand flats and the sand bottoms that we have in the Indian Ocean. So that's a very effective fly. Again, it works very well for whether you're fishing for permit or triggers, but in this case we're going to use it for permit, and it is that's my number 2. That's my number 2. So my number 1 is the Avalon fly. Now the Avalon fly, again, is a shrimp-based pattern. It was developed by Mauro Ginevri at Cayo Largo in Cuba, and this fly has accounted for more Grand Slams on permit than probably any other fly in the Caribbean.
Right.
And this was the first development of the keel system, which I then used on the Gumby crab.
Yeah.
So Mauro had spent a lot of time fishing the flats of Cayo Largo, where there are a lot of permit. So he's got a bit of orange rubber legs in there. And this was one of the first flies which moved people away from fishing crab style patterns for permit and moved them onto fishing shrimps, which you could then move. And the joy of that is you get a much more aggressive take from a permit.
Yeah.
So they'll come in and they'll chase it and they'll actually hit it, rather than having to fish static and try and figure out when to strike.
Yeah.
So the Avalon fly has just got to be the most successful permit fly that's around, and so therefore that for me, that's my number one.
Before Pete half-hitches this box again, we're going to give this away. So if you like, subscribe and leave a comment below. We'll choose a winner in about a week's time and post it on the Facebook page.
And as always, we hope you found this video useful, and please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.